Good afternoon, beautiful black people, and welcome to Black with No Chaser. Today's topic is identity rights, whose right to choose. And I'm here with two incredible guests and speakers, panelists. And at this point in time, I'd love to introduce them. First and foremost, Tony Clue, welcome to the show. So glad to have you both here today for this, for this purpose. It's obviously an important cause, and so I want to just get into introducing my two esteemed panelists, and then we'll get right into kicking it about what we're talking about today. First and foremost, we have Tony Bryce. She's an actress, college graduate, content creator, and trans activist. Tony has used her platform to further liberate and advance her community by participating in PrEP awareness campaigns, creating programming and events to serve and educate on her community as a community health advocate, and with her work on screen portraying various characters with complex arcs. Tony is also a cast member of the new hit scripted series, one of my favorite series, P Valley on Stars. Tony, you be doing your thing.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here. And also, we got Lakeisha Clue Atkinson. She's a community activist and leader, current vice chair of Portsmouth School Board, board member of Equality Virginia Advocates, Stop the Violence 757, the Man Foundation. Lakeisha embodies many notable qualities, such as being a powerful and effective communicator, an enthusiastic director and coordinator, and much more. She's able to maintain all of these strong qualities while also still being fair, wise, and confident. She's born and raised in Portsmouth, Virginia, so I know this is hitting close to home. And
Right.
she's able to learn the ins and outs of her community and adopted a very personal connection to her peers. And so, in that, she graduated from Norfolk State University. I
You know,
with a bachelor's in science, also majoring in criminal justice and holding a minor in sociology. So, with that being said, I'm really, really excited to have y'all here today. I hate that it's under the circumstances that it's under, but in spite of that, I think that um, you know, I'm looking forward to the conversation and dialogue that we have. Okay, and we got our brother, my good brother, Consciously in the building. So let me introduce him real quick. Welcome, brother.
Going on, man? Sure.
It's it's good to see you, man. I'm glad that you pulled up for this one.
Yeah.
Um, Consciously, with over 2 million followers on social media, as well as being named in YouTube Black Voices Creator Class of 2002, 2022, and also recently named the creator's favorite creator for YouTube Class of 2022. This brother has a virtual presence that impacts many. This intellectual, debating, hip hop dancing, thought provoking, and workshop facilitating keynote speaker proves that Black intellectuals don't have to play respectability politics to deliver a message that resonates. Conscious has over 8 years of experience in education and over 5 years experience in consulting. Lee holds a bachelor's degree in African American Studies and a master's degree in Human Relations, as well as a master's degree in Adult Higher Education. He also has graduate certificates in Women and Gender Studies and Human Resources and Diversity Development from the University of Oklahoma. As if he doesn't have enough to do, Conscious is on the Content Advisory Board for the New High app fan base, as well as Director of Policy Debate for OU's nationally recognized debate team, a professor, and has been named in the top 20 college policy debaters of the past
We can
decade.
end this at the first paragraph, man. Get the first paragraph.
Hey
And
man,
then
hey brother, it's immaculate, man. We love to see it, and we're so glad to have you here, my brother C. Lee.
appreciate y'all
welcome,
for having me.
welcome
Appreciate
to
y'all
Black
for
Widow
having me.
Chaser once again, man. Hey, all of y'all are family when y'all get in the building. And that being said, man, we're just gonna get right into this crazy ass law that Virginia's recent Governor Youngkin, has brought forth, and that law being uh, the new policy that he's introducing that essentially is preventing trans students from one participating in sports, identifying as they identify, uh, mandating that teachers call them uh, their assigned names, right, at birth,
Yep.
rather than how they identify, and also require them not to utilize bathrooms or attend sport or play sports as they identify. Now, this is one of over 200 anti-LGBTQ bills that have been introduced at the state level this year alone, according to the LGBTQ rights group Freedom for All Americans. Some of these laws or policies go so far as to restrict access to gender affirming medical care, right? So, with that being said, I kind of just want to open up the floor at this time to really ask our first question in this segment. Uh, are children too young to know their gender? And should parents be able to make the decision on how their child is identified? I'm going to pass this first question to Clue, being she's a native of Virginia, and this is directly impacting, her.
I knew you was gonna go there. So unfortunately, I do reside in the state of Virginia, and it's constant chaos around this topic. But just to answer your question, can children know their gender at a certain age? This is more so opinionated. Just from being around children, I think they understand their feelings more so, and then how you feel basically affirms like what gender you identify with. So that's how I would answer that question. And with the kids nowadays, they're so smart in their feelings and their emotions that, you know, believe who they are and who they say they are. And I think parents generally don't support that. And generally, what I see in the education environment is parents don't support the unknown. So I feel like it's our job as a community and as an elected official to keep knocking on this door and educating them and educating these knuckleheads in politics, you know, on what that is. Because the more you know, the more you'll be able to understand and be relatable to it, and not so much be for it, but you can more so relate to it because it is a human issue.
Thank you, Clue. I definitely want to continue to dig into what was being said, and I mean, I'm thinking of this from the perspective of children are not their parents' property, right?
Right.
While the parents have a responsibility to care for their children, and they may have the custody of their children, they certainly don't own their children's identity. So, Tony, I'm going to pass it to you because I want to hear your thoughts on um, parents' role uh, in this, and whether or not children have the right to identify in the way that they want to.
So, as your resident trans person, I always have said that as a kid, as a child, you may not always know terms, you may not always have that particular language, but you do know how to express what you feel. And I feel like parents need to allow children to the freedom of expression and not always policing that expression. I was on a Tammy Mack show one day, and I was talking about when we talk about gender, like gender is policed from the womb. Gender is policed from the womb. So kids don't even have the freedom to express because they're already policed. Oh, the doctor said I'm having a boy because it's assigned male. Okay, so we get blue balloons already for the gender reveal. So like it's policed from the beginning, so there's no freedom to express. And then when somebody is trying to express or trying to find their way, it's policed in a way like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, no, that's wrong, blah, 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 blah. So as a kid that went through that, um, and really more so back then, because I feel like now we have visibility and that visibility is growing. But back then, in the 90s, we ain't had no visibility like that. So of course, I'm the only known trans person, even within my family. So for me to come out, everybody thought, oh, Tony gay, Tony gay. And I'm like, child, I grew up not realizing that it wasn't a sexual orientation battle, it was a gender battle for me. And people, because of their lack of education, you growing up having a lack of education about who you are. So I feel like parents, one, needs to educate themselves. They need to allow children to express themselves in whatever ways they feel and know how. And yeah, just stop policing. I'm just tired of the policing. I really am tired of the policing. And now obviously it goes beyond the home. Even in Alabama, you allow your child to have gender affirming care, they're saying you're committing child abuse.
Facts in Texas too.
Wow.
Wow.
In
Wow.
Texas too. So it's like you can't even provide for your child or support your child in that way in those particular states because now you're a child abuser. It's like, what?
And y'all feel free to jump in the conversation because I want this to be a conversation between
Yeah.
us. I don't want it to be, too stuffy or anything like that. I really want us to have a conversation around that. And Tony, something that you said made me just, think about, because do you recall an age where you kind of like were like, okay, like I'm starting to understand this, like, and around what age was it that you really began to understand your identity?
I remember I lived at 6 Agnes in Cahokia, Illinois, and what I remember specifically, so a lot of times people try to make it about toys you play with. And I remember as a kid, I like trains and I like to play with buses. And I was infatuated with buses that had the wheels behind the drivers. I'm like, how do they turn these corners? I was infatuated. I thought I was gonna be a bus driver when I grew up. But I love playing with trains. I like to build the tracks. Like, I was that kid, but that didn't determine that I was this boy that would develop it to be a grown man or whatever. But what I remember specifically was I remember that was a certain outfit that I would have on. And I just remember how this outfit made me feel. It made me feel so like, I won't say certain words on this platform that we say.
Now you can say whatever you want. This Black with No Chaser, so you can say
Shit,
talk your
goddamn
shit.
It
Say
made
what
me
you want.
feel like, the girl, like the
Yeah. Okay. Talk that shit. Talk that shit.
So that's how it made me feel. So I remember for me, it was about a specific outfit. It wasn't about toys that I played with because I had already been policed not to play with stuff like that. It wasn't about I was great at flag football. But it wasn't about those kind of things. It was about what I felt. And I often tell people too that transition is multiple things, but for me, first and foremost, it was always a spiritual one, because I feel like for the spiritual people that talks about, we're these spiritual beings having this earthly experience. Well, if I'm this spiritual being that was placed into this body, why can't the spirit be placed into a body that's not affirming of who the spirit is, this divine feminine or whatever the case may be? And I feel like I started to notice things like that maybe around like, I want to say like 5 or 6. And the only reason why I remember the age is because of the house I lived in and what time frame we lived there. So in the early 90s. Because I was, I'm a 90s baby, exactly the year 90. So
yes. So look, I think it's really important to understand that truly from your perspective. And I appreciate you taking the time to break it down for us. C. Lee, Conscious Lee, my brother, I want to pass that same question to you. And then I want to open the floor for y'all to kind of kick it in this conversation a little. Are children too young to know their gender? Should parents be able to make the decision on how their children or their child is identified?
I think that we gotta unpackage a lot of things that are presumed when that question is being asked. I guess as she said, I'm saying as the resident cisgender man that's also a parent. You feel me? I say it's a lot of misinformation and education that goes when we talk about gender. Shit, my daughter just got done watching Disney. We watched Disney last night. And my daughter, you feel me, are being, my daughter is being indoctrinated and taught about gender and how she should perform her gender. So I feel like when you ask that question, you really beg the question, is it too early to learn that you may not be cisgender? You feel me? That's really what it comes down to. You see what I'm saying? And we know that from a child development standpoint, fuck your feelings, you feel me? From a child development standpoint, which means it is based in evidence, we know that children as early as 5 start to be able to identify and or express their gender identity. So when we think about, you feel me, the various ways that we talk about masculinity and femininity and the way we inscribe it onto children, I think that it's really a lot of, I'm gonna call it like a heterosexual hypocrisy. Because a lot of people don't know the difference between sex and gender. So a lot of times these conversations are taking place, like she said, you feel me? It's like shit. It was said to me, Tony, you ain't a woman, you just like niggas. Like, nah, it's more than that. You see what I'm saying? And for me, it's just thinking about the privilege that we have to not know shit. Because, you know, we talk about race, we can talk about white privilege. We talk about the privilege that white people have to have experiences they don't have to know about, to have fear and threat they ain't got to know about. When we just suppose that to thinking about like cisgender privilege, i.e., you ain't never have to have nobody try to deny your humanity or existence based off of you not conforming to the way they say you would slap the M or F, you feel me, when you came out the womb. I think that's when she's talking about like you really at a gender war from the jump, and then I like to keep the conversation going forward. I realized from this little bullshit that the conservatives pull, they really are trying to manufacture a quote unquote culture war, and that culture war is really just trying to get the conservative they base to go and out to the polls. You feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, so people don't give a damn about Texas, really. You see what I'm saying? Especially as poor folks don't give a damn about Texas, but if we start talking about the kids in schools, and we start talking about, you feel me, how they're being attacked, never mind that trans kids are dying or killing, you know what I'm saying? Literal suicide rates for trans kids is this high. Fuck all that. Hide your kids, hide your wives. They better not just like, to me, that's the shit we're going through. You know what I'm saying? That's wild.
Right.
We was just touching on that earlier about how they riling up their base to basically get to their original agenda. So they're preying off of emotion, and they're utilizing this particular topics and other topics to get their base emotional, to get them out to vote, because that's the only way, you know, their base reacts is off of emotion. So I feel you on that. We was just talking about that early.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about that, Clue. When Celie said that, I was like, we literally were just talking about the way in which politics has been put before people in this situation, and they're utilizing identity politics for the purpose of crushing the voices of people who are already marginalized, multi-marginalized in instances where, you know, we're talking about Black trans women, Black trans men, non-binary. And so in that regard, like I really want us to get into the meat of understanding what it is that we can say to the youth who are definitely right now experiencing this, because while it is in many ways a fight that they now have to fight, how is it that we fight beside them, and how is it that they know that they aren't alone in this fight? And that's open to anyone who wants to speak to it.
I know representation, and you know, a lot of times when we think about violence, the idea that silence is consent, quote unquote, is something that a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, kind of vibe to. So I feel like if we see that there are political, social, economic targeting of trans children, trans youth, and we're not doing shit, I think that sends signals to trans youth that say the world really don't give a fuck about you like that, and whatever you want to do, you worthless, you do it. And I think that having these type of dialogues, and I think having people that's in the ground, you know what I'm saying, on ground in Virginia, being able to reach out to these kids and touch these kids and talk to these kids, to me, from my cisgender perspective, you feel me? I know that I'm definitely got some blind spots, but I think that is something that's very simple that can be kind of pushed forward.
Righteous.
No,
go ahead, Tony.
I was gonna say I do feel like want to represent. I feel like we talk about a lot of times as trans people, waking up every day and getting out of bed is an act of activism, is an act of resistance. And I feel like for youth nowadays to see us and to see that there are people out there that's representing a community, I feel like will hopefully let them know that this too shall pass and we will get through this. Or regardless, I'm gonna still be me and I'm gonna still exist in this space, period. Because the law or whatever else can't stop me. Because I mean, we look at history, look what they tried to do to us, and we're still here. Still fighting, still here though. And I think too, like we just have to. So, for example, what was that? Florida, when they did the "Don't Say Gay" bill,
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, yeah, sure. But what about the trans part? Like, I feel like a lot of times everything is rooted in, we say LGBTQ, but the T is so silent. The T is like erased or neglected and not handled with care and not elevated, none of that. And I feel like we have to be more expansive in the language around like what we're fighting for, because when you don't say the thing that we're fighting for, then the people won't know, or the people won't be fighting, or the people won't be advocating. So, or even just talking about it, period. And I think around that time, what was it, the Oscars or something came on? I remember a few people who was like, don't say gay. And they were like, gay, gay. And I was like, "Ah, okay, great. But what about, the trans youth and the trans? Because as a person who is trans, I as you said, the difference between sex and gender is, or sexuality and gender is different. I don't identify as gay, even though I'm trans. I don't identify as that. So when people say the gay community or people just say gay, I feel excluded from that, because you're not specifically saying trans, which is what I identify as. My sexual orientation is not mutually exclusive to how I identify, and people don't understand it either. So it's not the gay community, it's the LGBTQ, but we also, but we also have to not erase and like, we have to amplify that T. Like, we have to talk about it. We have to talk
And I
about it.
think that Florida bill, I think, pushes more ignorance, because it takes away the opportunity to teach students the difference between sexuality and gender. It takes away the opportunity to teach about child development and psychology in terms of gender. And I feel like when you take that away, it makes it where we have a lot of motherfuckers just sitting on different social media platforms pushing violent, you know what I'm saying, rhetoric or ideas that literally have a bad impact to live people realities. You feel me? Like, I'm a Southerner, you know what I'm saying? All of us feel like Southern, most of us are Southerners. We know that down south, Black trans women uniquely have a low life expectancy. So it's like, thinking about that from a Black standpoint, it's like, nigga, what does that mean for you? You feel me? What does that mean for us?
Indeed. No, no, no,
And
that's
we definitely need, with that representation piece, we definitely need more of our voices and seats, making the decisions, lawmakers. We need us, we need allies. That way, in a room, full of people that's trying to go against us, we have that one person that's in there fighting, what I'm saying, that's advocating, that's educating, saying, no, we would not allow this. So, like, with that representation piece, I wish I can say, hey, everybody don't want to be a politician. You know what I'm saying? It's, you constantly scrutinize. You can't say certain things on social media. I do, because I'm that future elected official that's going to do what they want to do on social media and not be constrained. But we do need more voices out here fighting for these children, because nowadays I can look at one of the kids that's having an issue, say, hey, do you see Tony? Like Tony just said, that's a trans that's out there making it happen. And you can also do the same thing. So know that you're not alone. And sometimes with children, you just got to show them, hey, you're not alone. You got allies, you got people fighting, so it's all in just, just giving them that motivation, that inspiration, that it's people out here that genuinely loves you and want to make a change.
Clue. I'm absolutely with you on that. What I'm thinking is of ways that the youth directly and even teachers can resist this type of policy, right? Regardless of if the policy says that a trans student doesn't have the right to go into a particular bathroom or restroom or whatever. Is there a way that students can rally around their trans classmates and ensure that they're doing what's necessary in spite or in the face of these laws to essentially to say we're not going to be dictated to?
Right.
Are there measures that they can take to push back? Were there people? What can be done to push back and resist these types of laws directly?
Well, I'm gonna just say, like, and from my standpoint, we have had that issue where we have non-binary students and teachers not recognizing their pronouns. So I mean, from my standpoint, being that I'm on school board in my area, I can advocate for professional development, you know, for those teachers to see why that's important, why this student feels this way, and you know, you will not disrespect their pronouns. But other than that, we've been hard on pushing like the GSAs, and that, you know, the GSAs is not just for our community, it's for everyone, because everyone needs to understand this conversation. So making that open to all, and just also, you know, setting policy, being a model school board in Virginia, having myself on the school board and saying, hey, we gonna pave the way, you know, that way everyone understands. And like I said, only thing I can do with those teachers, because a lot of them are gonna put religious beliefs in there, I can't do this because of my religious belief. But at the end of the day, you took a vow as a teacher, as an elected official, to make policies based on humans and not what you believe. So a lot of people don't know how to set aside their religious beliefs and see the human aspect of it.
You know, I don't, that's a hard question. But what I will say is, in the acting world, when they don't feel treated well, baby, they're gonna strike. And you can't work.
Right.
And we can't go on set. We can't film. The writers are not writing. And I know that's obviously, you know, on the extreme for a lot of people, because you still got to provide for your families. I don't know. Like I can't really.
Hey, they did do it though. It was like 5 high schools in Virginia that had, you know, like literally organized a walkout. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and we saw how the right-wing media responded to them walking out, and it was just more rhetoric about culture wars. Because to me, I feel like I would answer the question with a question. You asked me, what are some things that students and parents and teachers can do about these policies and bills? Shit, my response is, what are y'all willing to lose or sacrifice or give up?
X. Hey, look.
Sometimes, listen, I don't give a damn. You 12, you 15,
you
13, you 21, you 25, you're 40. If we talking about going against policy, if we're talking about going against people that have power to literally infuse the law, and we talking about collectively organizing against that law, we have to ask ourselves, hey, what you willing to lose? Because you ain't willing to lose shit, we can already tell you can't do much. You ain't willing
not
to lose
about
shit.
that life.
Yeah, you know, this ain't. You shouldn't even worry about posing those types of questions, because you probably posing it in bad faith. You ain't ready to give up anything. But if you willing to sacrifice, you feel me? Maybe not being able to go to a college, maybe, you know what I'm saying, instead of being able to get the shit you want, to get that phone, maybe you gotta get a little bond money. Maybe you know what I'm saying, the people that you was cool with ain't as cool with you. Maybe you get alienated by your grandma, your church family. It's some shit you gotta give up.
Man,
but when you willing to, at first, what you willing to negotiate, then we can do that.
That's some real shit though. I mean, like if you really put that into perspective, I mean, like that's when you know you really locking arm in arm with folk. You know what I mean? Like you really taking a stand along with people who you know are multi-marginalized when it comes to the issues that they're dealing with beyond a fucking policy being implemented to, you know, to compound that, right? So when you understand that, then that's what really inspired me about this, is the idea that kids were saying, we ain't standing for this. Like we're willing to walk out of every school in this state if this is the type of law or rule in which we have to, you know, we're going to be dictated to, as though we don't have autonomy as human beings, as though we don't have the ability to you know, think for ourselves. And it's not the kids pushing this. It ain't like the kids came to people saying, hey, can you implement a damn law to prevent trans students from going to the restroom with me, to prevent trans students from playing sports with me.
And they tokenized it. That's what they did though. I'm working on the video right now, and it was in Pennsylvania. There was this cisgender high school student that claimed she was victimized and taken out the game because of a transgender student was able to win, you know what I'm saying, or able to compete. You feel me? Now the transgender athlete didn't get to go to college, didn't get no scholarships, none of that shit. The cisgender athlete that was done so bad and was taken out because she had to compete against this trans woman, she got goddamn 10 different scholarships, and she's been able to create a platform off of creating policy to keep trans women or keep trans people out of sports, I would say. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about, you feel me, the way in which we're able to sensationalize different particular experiences, to be like, hey man, I got one student, Mr. Lee, and Miss Bryce, and Miss Clue. Yeah, they don't want to be competing with trans because they believe it's unfair and this, that, and the other. My question would be like, so do you care more about competitive equity than you care about humanity? Do you care more about kids being able to participate, to say that they are acknowledged, or you care about kids being able to participate and say they won?
There you go.
Which
there
one?
You go.
Deep.
I want to go into, and that actually takes us into the next question, y'all. What would not being able to identify as their true selves mean for those trans students in the community, in education, and in organized sports?
When I was talking to Chris, even about this title and the word choose came up, I said, baby, that choose word can be real triggering for some of us. And because I often tell people, the only thing I chose was to be happy. The only thing I chose was to live authentically. And this is the result, but that was the only thing I chose. And so for me not to be who I am, it's really life and death. Like it's really, and we clearly see that in suicide rates, we see that in mental health. It's literally life and death. And for me, it's just as plain as that. It's life or death. It's literally life or death. And I like to speak from a lived experience, because a lot of times when we speak, when we quote the science stuff, it's often coming from people that don't even have the lived experience, child. So I like to quote from a lived experience. It's life or death for me. And that's the only choice in any of this was to be happy and was to live authentically. And that's just that on that. And so not having that is life or death.
Thanks.
Yep. And like you said, you brought up that mental health piece. Like, I mean, a lot of that's like the token word now. Mental health is a public health issue. But when you're talking about, children who can't identify as their self, you're opening the door for depression. You're opening the door for suicide. You're opening the door for anger. So many emotions, and all that built up anger and frustration. Who's to say they're not going to take it out on somebody else? So you open up the door to potential assault, potential homicide, because, I can't imagine if I couldn't be myself, I'm going to have an outlet, to let go of that frustration. So it's a lot of like bullet points and different things that can open up from just a person not being able to be their self and who they are.
Yeah. Definitely. A lot of homelessness, a lot of abuse, a lot of drug addiction comes from people being abandoned and or untreated mental health. And we know that how a lot of particularly white, straight conservatives value their identity. You're not finna talk shit about their symbols. You ain't finna talk shit about their music. You ain't finna talk shit about their culture, because they get a sense of self from that and they're invested in it. So I think that when we literally compare that to the trans experience, I don't know nothing about it. I just read about it. You know what I'm saying? Tony, don't smoke it out. But listen, read about it. You feel me? I recognize that there are a lot of trivial shit we taught to make it where we already are almost trivializing mental health. So instead, we saying mental health, like trans youth not being able to affirm themselves equals bad mental health. The general public see it as a youth, a child identifying as not cisgender, mental health.
Right.
So you see a lot of people that would try to literal pathologize mental health, but saying like being trans is a mental illness because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, whoa, what DSM 1, 2, 3 you coming from with that one? You know what I mean? I think that is, to me, from a content creator standpoint, an educating standpoint, I would say that is the thing that is the most swept under the rug. Like, you care about kids, pro-life, whatever. Kids shouldn't say gay. Kids should not learn about CRT. Should kids live?
Man.
And it's crazy. In some states, they still conversion therapy is still legal in some states. Like,
shout out to Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
Florida.
Can you talk a little bit about what conversion therapy is?
So basically, for example, if Tony was a child and saying I'm trans, send her to a person that specializes in conversion therapy and say, no, get that trans out of you, whether that's constantly, telling you every day that you're not trans, or whether that's beating it out of you,
So this
beating
this
you
is
straight.
literally torture. Like this
Yeah.
is
It
we
is.
talking
Shock
about potentially.
therapy, goddamn, all type of psychological games, all type of different like waterboarding and stuff. I done read about some of the wildest shit. That's like, this is stuff that I read in World War I, World War II, Desert Storm, Prison of War. This is what they do to prisoners of war. You feel me? This
Right.
shit right here. We're doing kids like that, trying to correct them.
I often talk about, not often, but I always say, I joke about it, but I guess my conversion therapy that I experienced was in church, the laying of hands, the casting out of demons. And I always talk about, y'all was trying to cast out some gay demon that I didn't have, but y'all done cast out a trans demon. Yeah. So I often joke about it now because I can, but we don't never talk about the religious aspect. I mean, obviously a lot of that is rooted in religion, but as far as literally being on the floor in the church because somebody laying hands trying to cast them out of you, it's like, that's even traumatizing. But I just want to put that out there. And then I want to say too, as far as like schools, like education and sports, what a lot of us have to understand too is like some kids, we don't know what they're dealing with at home. And so they come to these spaces thinking it's a safe space where they can have, 8 hours out of their day to like be with the people that their friends or express or do whatever. We've seen oftentimes in movies where kids will leave the house one way and then go to school and they're a whole different person because this is their safe space, this is their outlet. And now that has moved from the home now to in the schools. So it's like, where am I going to find an outlet? Where am I going to find a safe space? I can't do it at home. I can't do it at school. Where am I going to find this?
Damn sure can't do it at church.
Not at church, not in sports.
Yes.
So it's like, where am I going to find it?
Yes, Tony, you are on it. I was definitely about to talk about religion's role in all of this and the way that they aren't separating church and state anymore, right?
Yeah,
like
man,
literally,
you get to the point.
right? Talk to me about that. Like the fact that the government is now imposing essentially their beliefs, one beliefs which still are, being misapplied, but their beliefs in it, particularly like the Judeo-Christian aspects of things, in how people, are allowed to live and identify.
Hey, you got Esquire behind your name, right? I ain't that. You feel me? So listen, I ain't asking for legal advice, bro. Just correct me when I'm wrong. My understanding of unalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, says that you are able to enjoy those rights until you encroach on somebody else's unalienable rights. Is that correct?
That's facts.
Okay. That being said, I see a lot of individuals able to use the First Amendment, freedom of religion, to say that, hey, Tony, I'm a Christian. Your mere presence and your existence is stopping my freedom of religion because, nigga, I can't do what I want to do because you exist. Now, when we think about the way that laws and policies operate, how we're able to take Christian doctrine, Christian values to say this law should be this law. Is it not unlawful? That's the question.
Yeah. That's the thing is they said it was the parents' fundamental right to make a decision. But that means that they are dismissing the child's fundamental right to identify as who they are. And that fundamental right obviously supersedes a parent's fundamental rights, or because that isn't the parent's fundamental right. It's a misinterpretation of what is and is not fundamental. It's not as a parent, you don't own your child.
Hey, some places down south, you know what I'm saying, still practice that old chastity belt.
Right, that's
you
all
give
I'm
me
gonna
3
say.
pigs, I give you my daughter. You give me the trust fund, I give you my daughter. You give me, so you feel me, in some instances, how I see it when you talking, thinking about it, like if you say you pro-life should exist in every instance, also outside the womb, right? So we can recognize that you creating these policies leads to death, and you say you're pro-life, or you say you care about kids. Which kids are you talking about?
Right. They only talking about specific kids. And that's crazy that you use that pro-life, because a lot of people think pro-life is, just general like birth.
Everybody should live.
Pro-life is beyond birth. So yeah.
No,
Crazy.
literally the quality of life, the ability to live life, and as Tony said, literally it's a matter of life and death. So,
Simplified.
so
Yeah.
you know, are you going to people shouldn't have to be allowed to exist. They should just be able to exist. You know what I mean?
But
And so,
being real though, for me having this conversation with a lot of other parents, me having this conversation, you feel me, being born and raised in Texas and living in Oklahoma and now living back in Texas, a lot of people see the idea of whatever's going on in my house, you have to comply to it. So I think about it as the ways in which we normalize saying like, hey, 3-year-old Pookie cute, that's my little boyfriend. You 16, you 25. Feel me? Little so-and-so cute, man, she gonna be a heart this, that, and the other. So thinking about how that is cool, that's fine. No issue with that shit. You see what I'm saying? But if your child wants to identify, you feel me, as not what you say they is, it's like that's bad. But think about the life piece. The life piece is very important. We're acknowledging from a mental health standpoint, denying individuals the ability to affirm their identity leads to death. You are pro-life, meaning that from the embryo all the way to goddamn the Lord calls you there. You're supposed to have the right to live. How if you're denying people gender affirmation and there's an internal link between affirming gender and life?
damn,
Pro-life.
That is so good.
yeah,
That's the word.
yeah, yeah. The right, you're supposed to have the right to live, but not the right to exist in the way that
Or
you
to affirm your existence if you're transgender. If you
Right.
cisgender, you can.
right. I mean, we definitely, as coming from a place of privilege, like it definitely puts a lot on your mind to think about. I want to, I really want to keep this conversation going, and so
I want to say a quick statement because on my mind real fast.
Yeah, please
when
do.
you ask the
Please
question about when can we learn gender, it's kind of weird when you ask it because it's thinking about it like we have gender reveal parties. So it's like, when can we reveal gender? We already revealed the gender. The gender was revealed when you slap the M or the F. So can we talk about like also, I know we talk about transients, but also I think there's a slippage that happens for intersex people that make it where we always already view gender as being binary. So even outside of trans people and people that are gender fluid, but really recognizing the way you are marked F or M can be wrong. And there's a history of it being wrong. So when we get back to, again, the gender confirmation question, it's like, whose gender are we revealing and affirming? Because it's already out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Shit.
basically, Tony, that's basically what you was touching on. They already putting it out there.
Literally police from the room.
Yeah.
As soon as they do that ultrasound and they see something sticking up or not sticking up.
And too, because we're talking about it, we know that just in terms of gender literacy, the ability to read and write gender, we know that ultrasound is not being able to detect the way the ultrasound is literally programmed is not in a way to account for intersex bodies.
Right.
So even in acknowledging the way that we mark gender onto individuals is done in a very violent way, I think that we still have to beg the question. If you are pro-life and you for life, and we're recognizing that the way that we put our identity on a person literally impacts their quality of life or if they live or not. Tony said life or death.
Life or
Yes.
death.
Why are you playing with these folks' identity? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
The last thing I said in my rant, it's right here, Tony. It's something I learned. I seen this on a tweet, right? Shout out to Black Twitter. They said some shit like this. A lot of Christian evangelicals will be like, I don't care about that pronoun shit. Call God a she.
Exactly.
What?
Call God a she. And
They
everything
coulda-
about
I didn't see that
pronouns
one.
will become hyper focused, hyper serious, hyper real. I can keep on going right here, but call God a she and see how quickly that goes from saying to hell with pronouns to being like, how dare you disrespect the Father?
Right.
And which is, I tweeted something like that recently too, because one thing that irritates me is, especially with my Black people, is when they get on platforms and they say, oh, it's all so new. It's all so new. It's not new.
Mm-hmm. At all.
Pronouns are not new. And I literally said that. I went on Twitter. I said, since y'all think pronouns are so new, why do y'all call God he? How do you know God is a pronoun? Like, how?
Why
Since
does your
everything is
vehicle
so
with the
new.
exhaust pipes a she?
I feel like that's a defense mechanism when they don't have the education or don't want to be educated or open-minded enough to be educated. Because I'm like, none of this is new. Whether a term has evolved or whatever, none of it is new. Even when it comes to like gender nonconforming or non-binary, we ain't never heard of androgyny.
Mm.
We never
Right.
heard of terms like a lot of things. None of this is new. Things just evolve.
Right.
Two-spirit, for
Two
sure. Like,
spirit. And that's a whole nother conversation with indigenous people that was here before. Who got here? Oh, okay.
Hey, Tony. What I learned is, man, a lot of folks that claim they love intelligence or facts or research or empirics, when it comes to presenting information that they've invested in, you will figure out some ways to be like, nah. Because to me, I say it's a double bind. Even if this term is new, there's something that is everlasting, transcendental, fluid about language. If I tell a motherfucker they cap, hey, did we say people was capped in 2009?
Right.
1960?
Right.
Okay, shit, you swagged. Okay, shit, you got me fucked up. Listen, do you envision W.E.B. Du Bois telling Booker T. Washington, you got me fucked up? So can we recognize that the way in which African American vernacular English is always transcending? I'm born 1990. When we was growing up, we said shit was tight. That's tight, bro. That's tight.
Yeah.
Man, that shit tight. Do we still use that language? No. Would it be done to be like, Tony, you said the girls was whatever y'all say now, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's new. That's dumb. That's a bad argument. Mm-hmm. On top of that, it is not new. R.I.P. Marsha P. Johnson. From a pro-black hotel. Listen, man. Before white folks knew that the world was round, they thought it was flat. There were a lot of people, a lot of ancestors throughout Kenya, throughout the Keepalon, throughout Africa, throughout whatever you want to call the continent, that already practiced shit that we would deem as being gay, trans, fucked up, demon, heathen. They were like literal like.
It's been a part of the culture. It's been a part of the culture. It's been ingrained in the culture throughout history, and I've actually seen some great examples that you provided consciously on the history of it. Even in
trans pharaohs, man, it's trans pharaohs. If this is a pharaoh that is a woman, that this, that, and the other, and this person plays with identity and plays with symbols and plays with things that have been played with. What are we doing here? So can you say that this thing is brought to you by white supremacy or massa if this was existent before massa knew this exists? It doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm saying? So I recognize that from a pro-black Willie Lynch standpoint, a lot of individuals are lost in the sauce and being against your own people because you see their existence as being anti-you, i.e., white supremacy want to stop us from being fruitful and multiplying. So if you can't reproduce, then you bad. That's like you see your people through the lens of the white man. The white man says that the only way niggas can be productive in value is that they can produce.
That's crazy.
Nigga. If you can't produce another nigga, then you're not good. That's a bad like model of like value and bad model for representing your people. Like
certainly. And what you talk about a lot of times consciously is education is elevation.
I'm right, baby.
In the organizing space, right? So I want to get into how we can educate, activate, and organize people around this issue and pushing back against this particular policy that exists and other anti-LGBTQ, emphasis on the T, policies that we can truly fight back. Like, so I want to use this opportunity to really invite you all to talk with us about and I know you won't know all of the answers. I know this shit is not something that can be resolved in a day, but what are some ways that we can help to develop the strategy, something that we can push back with to say to Governor Youngkin and people like Governor Youngkin who are perpetuating this type of oppression? This is what we're doing. Like, how can we educate, activate, and organize around this issue?
Well, I'm gonna just say we already just putting like-minded individuals together in the room. So right now we are on this platform. We are just for like-minded individuals right now. So a lot of us have our social media. We gotta use the social media. It's a gift and a curse, but it also has influence. So if right now all four of us took a social media and say support, trans rights in Virginia, do you understand how powerful that would be? We can create our own movements. That's the beauty of social media, creating that movement, creating that moment, and just starting from there and just watch how it grows. That's what happened with the Me Too movement. So we can do that. We can just basically copy movements that have been successful and just start from there.
I would agree. And then I would also silence is not allyship. Just because you're not, I'm quiet, I'm not posting the good nor the bad, I'm staying silent, I'm over in my own house, minding my own business, mind the business that pays you. Silence is not allyship. So you have to speak out. Now, some of the opinions you can keep to yourself. If it's not going to affirm, which we know they won't keep to themselves. But for those that are in support of, that are allies, are affirming of our existence and our humanity and all of those things, silence is not enough. Like, silence is not enough. Like, you have to speak out. You have to use your voice. Because obviously, I always say, if we're not doing it, nobody else will. But you still have to, it has to be a collaborative effort amongst people that we exist with. I don't know. And I think that's the best thing that I can say. Because, that question is asked all the time. I'm just like, at this point, I don't know. Like,
at this point,
last year, we won't get.
And you know what, Tony, we need more white allies, because right now, I think society views this trans issue as more Black. And you already know it's separation between, the Black LGBTQ and the white LGBTQ. So when more white trans start stepping out and speaking, I guarantee you it'll be faster change. But right now it's a Black LGBTQ issue. So, we gonna do what we gotta do. We pushing under the rug. We gonna move how we move. But when it becomes a white issue as well, I'm telling you, it's gonna be a big difference.
Yeah, but Caitlyn ass too busy opening up her big ass mouth in California and all of the stupid shit she's saying. I'm so sick of her operating out of that white male privilege that she once had and still operating.
Exactly.
I'm so sick of hearing her open her mouth. Like, girl, shut up.
Shut
up. Like,
sensationality, man.
Jeez. And I also want to say thank y'all too, because I feel like a lot of times, for one, for being on a panel of people that where we're on the same page. Because oftentimes they set these panels up for us to argue and bicker and making me feel like I gotta be validated through other whatever. And just inviting one of us to the table, because oftentimes these conversations are had and none of us are at the table and having conversations about us but not with us. So thank y'all.
For sure. Celie, I want to pass to you to give you an opportunity to talk about the education piece and everything.
I was going to. That's why I let them speak back. I'm about to say the same shit I be saying. You feel me? Like a lot of people say they don't like dumbasses, but they really don't mean it, because you be invested in shit that perpetuates dumbassness and dumbassery. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like really recognizing intersectionality, learning how to be able to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. And one of the most liberating things I ever did was being able to say what I mean and mean what I say, being able to articulate myself. And I feel like education really gave me that access to being able to do that. So being able to really learn about how, the Pride Month and Pride movement come from Blackness and, you feel me, police brutality, and, learning about these different things. And also recognizing there are white trans people and there are Black trans people, and white trans people have a different relationship to transness and to everything else within the world that Black people do. So if you say you care about Black people, you should care about Black people in every instance, not just the Black people that fuck the way you fuck, that identify you identify, or that praise the God you want to praise. You have to care about Black people in most instances that you can, unless they own some shit that's anti-Black people. You see how that works? You're for all Black people unless they're anti-Black people. Now, can we negotiate what it means to be anti-Black people as an anti-Black person? Yes, we can do that. However, we should stand for all Black people, you feel me, regardless of their sexuality, gender, ability, whatever. And then going back to transness specifically, You feel me? I really would say like increase your gender literacy. You know what I'm saying? Like Google shit, the same phone you can say a dumbass comment from is the same phone you can go to Google Scholar and actually type in trans identity, trans history. You feel me? How do I learn? Like you can type in pronouns. You feel me? You can read a bullshit ass article that's generic as hell. You can go to the Google Scholar and get you a peer edited one as well. It's like if you want the information, it's at your fingertips. You know what I'm saying? But you know, if you don't want it, then you feel me? Just continue to be a bad person.
I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate what all of you have said today. I'm glad that you are here with Black with No Chaser. Literally, the things that we say is literally your blackness is safe here. But your identity is safe here as well. How you identify and who you are is safe here. That's the space that we created, and we created it for the purpose of being able to have conversations like the one we're having right now, but to also move the conversation beyond conversation into movement. And so that's why I want to say to you all today, hey, look, Black with No Chaser is down and in this fight with you. Clue, I know you on the ground in Virginia. So whatever we can do with our platform, with our presence to, help ensure that the efforts are being built around going from social media in a passive sense to social media and real presence in an active sense, we are down to do that. And so, we in it until it's free,
Right.
until it's freedom. So,
I say, man, if some of us ain't free, then none of us ain't free. Until people have that mentality, we're gonna always have people that try to define themselves or push themselves up in opposition to denying somebody else humanity or personhood. And that's really like the fuck shit we got going on. You feel me? Yes. A lot of our fellow Black men love to deny other Black people in our community because that's how they feel that they somebody. You feel me?
Right.
And Macklemore said it. Macklemore said it. No freedom until we're equal. Damn right, I support it. That's just what it is.
I mean,
okay, with the Macklemore quote, I'm like,
like, look, I'm listen, man. What I'm like with regard to this, I know that this is a fight, but what the lessons that we've learned today, even this is a matter of life and death. Tony taught us that, right? She explained to us, listen, this has been something that I've been dealing with since the moment I came through the womb. And so in that regard, we understand this is a matter of life and death. We understand that this is something that we can't be passive about, that we can't be silent about. We understand that if it's a fight to be had, then we have to be willing to lose something in order to win something. And that's what Constantly shared with us, and Clue shared with us, that you have to be involved. You got to be in place, in position to be able to make a difference. So, if that's what we're trying to do, then that's what's got to be done. I hope that the youth do lead this movement, because it's directly impacting youth. But we're here in whatever capacity we need to show up on their behalf. I know it's a scary thought of being suspended or being expelled or being whatever, but you can be strategic and you can be brave, and it's going to require courage in order to receive the type of change that's necessary, particularly when you are dealing with the type of oppression that we're dealing with laws like this, because they're going to be coming after everybody. I mean, if they are starting with the most marginalized people of all, then they're going to slowly, it's going to reach your doorstep eventually. And so let's start fighting together right damn now, rather than waiting till it's on your doorstep. And I think that's a pretty good place for us to leave it. I'm so thankful that all of y'all could pull up today, and y'all are welcome back anytime. Y'all family now, you know what I mean? See, Lee, you already know.
Yeah, Tony, shout out to y'all, man. Appreciate y'all for having me every time.
For sure. Tony, thank you so much for pulling up.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much for pulling up and taking your time.
No problem.
Black with No Chaser, till the next time, y'all. Think black and live black unapologetically. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Friend night.